and I don't remember her last name, but Bajor laid at the beginning of the wormhole, and Cardassia was at the other side of the wormhole, and that was where the Cardassians came from. Not Kardashians, but just as evil. But that's where the Cardassians came from. And there was a big conflict between them. But this is one that I watched like the first 3 seasons of, even though it went on for another 4 seasons after I stopped watching it.
Too much of a soap opera.
There's too much TV, but honestly, that was a soap opera
in space. Jinx.
All right. Moving along. Next in the canon
is Voyager, sent out into deep, deep space to explore the Delta Quadrant.
That's right. Well, that was their original mission, but then they got into a conflict with another group of people, which their name escapes me as well right now. But basically, they got into this big conflict, or they got into this little like skirmish. They ended up getting transported 70,000 light years from the nearest starbase. And that meant that, like, even at their maximum warp, they would take 75 years to get back to where they had come from.
Well, I'd like to talk about one of my favorite episodes called Scorpion. It actually introduces the Borg for the first time. And Seven of Nine, you remember her?
Yeah.
Seven of Nine, which was originally in TNG, and they introduced
Ryan.
her.
I don't think 709 was ever on TNG.
Was she not? No. Where was she on?
She showed up in... No, she was just Voyager.
Oh, you sure?
Pretty sure. Okay. No, she's supposed to show up in Picard.
Right. Okay.
Because I was the one that was just like, holy shit, that's 7 of 9 when we were watching Picard.
Right.
But we'll get there.
Okay. All right.
So, yeah. So, anyhow, Voyager, they get flung out into space. They're miles, like, quite literally trillions of miles from home. So, it's going to take them some time to get back. They were hurtled in some sort of vortex with their enemies, and they... That's right, the Maquis. Oh my god, okay. So, they were hurtled with these Maquis, who were they're basically rebels against the Federation. And so you have a Federation starship and rebels against the Federation. They get hurled into space. The Maquis ship was damaged beyond repair, and so they had to... The Federation, using the Prime Directive and not basically a Hippocratic oath of not wanting to cause harm, they beam aboard any of the Maquis that were not damaged, or that were not dead, on board the Voyager. And so then you have the captain of the Maquis, who was Chakotay, and you have Captain Janeway, who was basically like one of the first female captains in in the canon basically. And so they have to form together so that they can survive the 75-year trip that it would take if they were going at maximum warp the entire time to get back to where they came from. So they went to explore the Delta Quadrant, and they way over explored the Delta Quadrant. This was a show that went on for like seven seasons, I think, and it was awesome. There was a lot of really cool things, but like Julie was saying earlier, they discovered Seven of Nine in a 2-part episode that was a bridge between season 3 and season 4 called Scorpion. And Seven of Nine was the first humanized Borg. I mean, aside from when Captain Picard was turned from Locutus back into Captain Picard, Seven of Nine was a fully fledged Borg that they were able to de-assimilate and then re-educate to become a functioning member of Starfleet. And it was an amazing episode. But honestly, this series I also sort of just lost track of because, well, shit, life happens. But what I do remember is the final season of Voyager and the final 2 episodes where Catherine Janeway just flexes her she-bitch muscles and saves the entire Federation by just being a badass and breaking so many rules. She goes back in time, which is something they're not supposed to do, but many have done before her. But she goes back in time and shares all of her technology that fights against the Borg, and she gives the Federation all of the tools they need to defeat the Borg, or at least beat them into submission to where they weren't going around and assimilating everybody, because now the Federation had the technology and the power to stop them in their tracks. And she did that with partially some of the technology that came out of that episode that I was just talking about, the Scorpion. I hope I filled enough time. How was your pee, love?
Are you serious?
Yeah.
It was great.
Well, I just did my damnedest to just talk through it all.
Okay. Thanks for embarrassing me.
Welcome back.
Gee, thanks, husband. Okay.
All right, what are we on to next?
Moving on.
I think I've finished up with Kate Mulgrew and the rest of the Voyager episodes.
You know, I love her voice. She has such a distinctive voice. I really love her.
Yeah, she definitely had a commanding presence as Captain Janeway.
All right, moving on to the series Enterprise. Another one that we are not very familiar with. No. I don't think I watched a single episode of Enterprise.
I've only seen like a handful of episodes. I really tried to get into it back when I only had Netflix, and I started watching the first season with my roommate, but he was way into it, and so we watched maybe 2 episodes, and then I went to work and he had the day off, and I came back from work and he was 8 episodes deep, I'd have to say. But him being so deep in the series, I just like had to just step aside from it. And so, unfortunately, though I know that it's amazing, and Scott Bakula, holy shit, I loved Quantum Leap as as I was growing up. Did you ever watch Quantum Leap?
I loved Quantum Leap. Oh my goodness.
Such a good show. I mean, I hate that we're like taking this detour from our Star Trek to talk about Quantum Leap, but it was so much fun. I just remember watching it when I was a kid. I would watch it with my mother, like much of many sci-fi shows.
I watched it with my sisters. They loved it.
Yeah, I mean, he was the man out of time constantly, but you couldn't tell because he looked like whoever the person that he was supposed to be.
Back to Captain Archer in Enterprise.
Yes, he was Captain Archer. He was on the Enterprise. This show takes place about 90 years before the original series. So it was like Captain Archer, then like another dude, Captain Pike, and then Captain Kirk. That's how I guess it works. But basically, the Enterprise was the first ship that was capable of Warp 5. Which is really funny because when we were doing research for this, we were watching the very last episodes of TNG, and they were talking about Warp 13.
It's pretty awesome.
And so so TNG would be almost 200 years since Enterprise.
Wow. That's pretty incredible.
It is pretty incredible. I mean, just like it's just such a beautiful canon. Gene Roddenberry, may you rest in peace. You made some amazing stuff.
You know he had his ashes shot into space?
Yeah.
So cool. I want that for myself. Will you pay for it? Pretty sure I'm going to die before you, so I'm hoping you're going to pay for it.
By the time you die, it'll probably cost like $20.
Cool.
I'll just be like, here you go. Here's a little shot. Just shoot that up into space. If not, I will grab my own like amateur aeronautics rocket kit. That's what I was looking for. I will buy one of those and I will shoot some of your ashes into space.
All right, I dig it.
If it doesn't make it, you'll land somewhere in Arizona, but I'll convince myself that that's close enough to space.
Thanks, Gavin. I appreciate that.
You're welcome, baby.
All right, moving on. Star Trek Discovery. A decade before Captain Kirk's 5-year mission, a portrayal in the original Star Trek from the 1960s, and a century before the events of Star Trek Enterprise.
Was it really a century before Enterprise?
That's what it said.
I don't believe that.
Okay, if you say so.
I think you're wrong.
All right.
Honestly, I think it went like no, it was a decade before. Like, cuz it went Enterprise. Like if you look into the canon, it's like Enterprise, Discovery, original series. And Discovery is about 10 years.
I'll tell you what.
Before.
I'm gonna give you Star Trek, and I'll take classic rock. Okay, it's all yours. You got the Star Trek.
Okay. Obviously, the bigger fan.
I'm just as big as fan as you are, but you retain knowledge better than I do. I retain music better than you do. So.
Well, I guess yeah.
There we go.
I mean, Of course, music is a meandering right brain thing. Canon is a strictly left brain, like this goes here kind of thing. So together we make a perfect brain.
Yes, we do.
So Discovery takes place about 10 years before 10 years before the original series. It's definitely after Enterprise, because they had to like get to that point, because Discovery circles around the exploratory ship that was also a warship, but it had an experimental spore drive. And what that allowed them to do was basically TARDIS the shit out of that, and they were able to go from any point in space and time and reappear in another point of space at the same time. Like, that's how the spore drive works. So they were able to go like point to point, and they would literally like jump, not through a wormhole, not using warp technology. They would just sort of blip, and that's how they got from point to point. But the spore drive itself was problematic, and that was part of the driving force of the show. But they also reintroduced the Klingons, but totally in a new light, where the Klingons now, there was a fella that was, what was his name? It was like Tisold or something like that. It started with a T. Anyhow, he was trying to unite the 26 houses of the Klingon Empire in order to basically destroy the Federation, which was basically their biggest adversary at the time, because they were the only ones that were able to best the Klingon Empire. And so we've been watching this one, but we still aren't all the way through it. But it's fascinating. But also because, and this one I don't blame on us. This one I blame on CBS, because we watched the first episode when it aired on TV, but then CBS only aired the first episode just to sort of get you hook, line, and sinker, and then they took it off and put it on CBS All Access, which we had no access to, nor the gumption to really watch it or even order it, because it was just another paywall. And that is what really, like, they just CBS just reeled in the geeks on that one, and that was just devastating. But we recently got CBS All Access, and we're trying to catch up on that. But the reason that we got the CBS All Access was the final series that we're going to talk about.
Picard, the brand new series. Sir Patrick Stewart back as Picard.
Patty Stew.
Oh my gosh, brought tears to my eyes to hear that man say engage.
Oh, good God. I saw that, and there was so many directions that you could go with that character, but the way that they're taking it in this season, and I really hope there's more to come. But so far, we're like 4 episodes deep into this season, and we are stoked.
It says it takes place 18 years after the events of Star Trek Nemesis.
Which is weird, because like just in the course of our research today, we were doing research, and Jean-Luc Picard was on his vineyard I don't mean to do any spoilers, but I'm gonna spoil some shit. But so they showed in in the final episodes of TNG, Jean-Luc gets caught in a time warp caused by Q, and he winds up 25 years in the future, and he's in his vineyard, and he's visited by Geordi, and he explains to Geordi that he's been having some really weird dreams, and these dreams seem much like reality, and he was caught in a time loop that was 3 different parts. And it was basically when he first came on the Enterprise, just before he left the Enterprise, and then in his life after the Enterprise. And herein lies the rub. So the whole episode is circled around this anti-time anomaly that they were trying to combat, and Picard couldn't figure out what it was. It was bigger when he first discovered the anomaly, when he first took over the command of the Enterprise. It was a little smaller when he was just about to leave the Enterprise, and then when he realized what he had to do when he was an old man, it was gone. And that is where the reverse time comes from. That's why they had, and this is complicated enough that they had to put it into a 2-story arc. But basically, he created the anomaly and destroyed the anomaly in the episode. Please go back and look at that. But where my qualms come from the Picard series is that if it's 18 years after, where the hell is Gates McFadden?
Exactly.
Because in that episode that I was just talking about, he's married to Gates McFadden.
Right.
He and Dr. Crusher. Dr. Crusher is no longer Dr. Crusher. She is the captain of a medical ship, and she is Captain Picard. They make a joke about it. They say, Captain Picard, and both Gates McFadden and Patrick Stewart turn and say, yes. So they're freaking married. So right. What happened? I mean, that's only 7 more years if you're going 25 years in the future, but Picard is supposed to be 18 years after Nemesis.
Right.
Which was a horrible movie. And, sweetie, I don't think that we're going to make to Nemesis. Or we're going to make it to the movies in this episode. This is going to be...
Okay.
This is going to be a 2-parter.
Oh, right. That's exciting.
Isn't it, though?
It's going to be a to be continued.
But before we do that, let's finish this one up.
All right, let's talk about the intros and how they changed. Gavin, you have the first one for Star Trek, the original?
Right. So the intro, the iconic intro into the Star Trek universe was words written by Gene Roddenberry. And this was supposed to be the monologue from the captain. In the original 19 66?
Something like that.
I've forgotten already. But in the original Star Trek, it was space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the Starship Enterprise. Its 5-year mission to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life, new civilizations, to boldly go where no man has gone before.
All right.
So yeah, there's some definitely like exclusionary terms in there. I mean, honestly, it's like it's 5-year mission. Well, your series only lasted 3 years, so that's not 5 years. But the movies, we'll get to that. The movies carried over. So I guess that could be part of the 5-year mission that was extended again. But the thing that many people had problems with was to boldly go where no man has gone before.
Which brings me, excuse me, to TNG. Space. Oh, what?
Well, why is that a problem?
What? Why? Because it's, I don't know. What is it?
It goes against some of the foundational things of Star Trek. Star Trek is always trying to address in a very roundabout way. Gene Roddenberry was trying to address social inequalities, problems like racism, sexism, social pressure.
Wait, because there's aliens and everything, so you can't exactly say no man because there's all kinds of people.
Well, but that's the minuscule. That's the minor point to this. But the racism, the sexism, like women not being able to be empowered. But then you got Lieutenant Uhura, who was very sexy and made her point and made her voice on the show. And racism, like wherein there was like that episode, what the fuck was that episode called? But it was like the dudes that had like a line drawn down their face, and one of the people was like black face on the right side and white face on the left side, and then the other was white face on the left side and black face on the right side. So it was truly a thing of we're all the same people, we just look a little different. But also, women are powerful as well.
Which
is why we go to the more gender neutral Next Generation Captain Picard, a more level-headed captain than James T. Kirk, who is severely more reactionary because he had never seen this shit before. But Picard, who came 90 years later, knew a thing or two because he'd seen everything else that came before him. So what did Captain Picard say in his intro?
Shall I do an accent?
If you can, number one.
Spice, the final frontier. These are the voyages.
Wait.
What? What's wrong with it?
When
Am I
did-
Irish?
No,
Oh,
you're Australian.
I'm Australian. Never mind. I won't try to do the voice then. I'll just read it. Too Australian. Okay, got it. Space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the Starship Enterprise. Its continuing mission to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life and new civilizations, to boldly go where no one has gone before.
Exactly. Nice, gender neutral.
But dang, I really wanted to make that English accent. It just wasn't happening for me.
Sorry, mate.
But... Sorry, I'm English. Yes, I'm English. I spotted tea on Tuesday. Tea on Tuesday.
There you go. That's like
tea on Tuesday.
That's like the Michael Caine being like the size of a tangerine. But no, it's good effort. But ultimately, like, it just shows the progressive nature of Star Trek as a social construct. I mean, even going, like, looking at Discovery, the focus is not on the captain. It's on the first officer, who happens to be a black Vulcan who's half human and thus has many different emotions, which she herself knows that she's not supposed to have, and thus she's a conflicted character. And that in its essence is Star Trek. And if that ain't a kick in the sack, I don't know what is. Stay tuned, because tomorrow we're going to talk about the movies. We didn't expect this one to go over an hour. We're kind of happy that it did, but we'll come back at you tomorrow and we're going to talk about the movies, because if you don't know the show, you definitely know the movies. There's 7 iterations of the show, but there's 13 movies to talk about. And we'll get to that tomorrow. So.
All right, this is Two Nuts in a Sack, signing off.